With Halloween right around the corner, we're gonna take this interesting prop. It says $7, marked down from 28. I think I got it for $5, but it's got a lot of potential. So we turned that very odd looking prop into this. An otherworld battle or ceremonial skull with a great handle. He's great for Halloween or any kind of cosplay. Interested? Here we go. I'll tell you what I do and don't like about this. I think the face and the spikes have so much goodness to them, but I'm not really happy with the greenish, and the teeth are wrong. Here they tried to do some silver thing. Here, to compare, I did some rub and buff silver, and I'm pretty happy with that. So I think I'm going to do that, then maybe age it a little bit. But this looks, it just looks a little chintzy, but the actual head itself, so much potentials. And I was trying to figure out how to get this guy off. I was trying to pull it off, and then eventually I figured out that it screws off, which makes it real easy because now I can spray paint this and not worry about this. So I'm going to do some aging, bring out a little bit more on the wood there. Got some thoughts and ideas on that. And we're going to really kind of jazz this guy up. And make him look a little battle worn. He just looks kind of tired, like somebody put him away. So we're gonna really kind of give this guy a little more character. And this is a chicken and egg thing. Do you do the spikes, then this paint here, or do you do the paint and then the spikes? You can see the rub and buff kind of goes over the edges there. So I'm gonna have to tape that off one way or the other. I'm gonna take this price tag off. I'm kind of mixed about the eyes right now. You'll see it obviously at the end state, but I'm thinking about putting some lights in there somehow. I've got an idea for a real low budget approach that will probably really make him pop. First thing we're gonna do, and we're gonna spray this guy down with some Navajo white to kind of represent the skull. Now I know a skull doesn't have this kind of detail. It doesn't have this kind of detail. It's an alien or a human from the future. I mentioned the chicken and the egg thing, which to do first. I started thinking about this and doing these nubs, and then I realized you're going to get around the skull. So you'd actually have to tape this twice. So what I decided to do is just do the rub and buff first, then I'm going to tape all these nubs off, then I'm going to spray paint it. And I did the silver teeth too, just to see the contrast. And I also worked the rub and buff on here. In hindsight, I should have just taken some tape and kind of wrapped that off a little bit, but I think I can take care of that without it showing through when I do the next level to the wood. So it's time to go outside and paint the skull after I tape all these little silver guys up. All right, we put the guy in the stick. We sealed up all these things. I've taken the first one off, and you can notice that there's a little bit of flaking around the skull. First of all, I'm really happy with how the skull came out. I used gloss. I could have gone satin, but I kind of like how that really makes the entire alien head pop. So let's take off this part here where the teeth were. Oh yeah, look at that. Let me pop this off. All right, got it back. So you might be able to see that there was some flaking here around when I took off the tape. So what I did is I took a straight edge and I just went around very lightly, but made sure that I cut through the connection between the tape and the skull. So hopefully we'll minimize that shedding or that flaking off. So let's take all these guys off and see what we got. And I'm going to take them off slowly to hopefully minimize. Yeah, look at that. With the teeth. I'm glad I did the teeth. Yeah, this is looking pretty strange. You can see there's a little bit of weathering that's gone on because of the tape. Well, there's the great reveal. Wow. Somebody, I mean, who would come up with a thing like this to begin with? But the shine of the skull and the spikes really seem to work well together. Now, I want to put some eyes in there using these lights. And I'm thinking about darkening that back in, the nose in, kind of the way it was before. And then, do I age the skull or just kind of leave it shiny like this? I'm not quite sure. And I have to figure out what I'm going to do with the staff. Got some ideas. So those are the next steps. It's time to catch you up on this build. I've had a lot of thoughts about this and tried a bunch of things. I'm going to share a couple ideas with you. First of all, I drilled some holes. Actually used a hole saw to cut that piece out so that this will fit in there. I could wire this up with LEDs and things like that, but I'm trying to show you some options if you're not electronic savvy. You got a little switch here that you have to contend with, but once these are mounted in here, I'd actually drill a hole in the back, put a stick in there with a little flashlight going through, and just turn that guy on. A couple things I've done that I've never tried before, but I figured I'd share with you is, first of all, I took the spray paint, and what I had is a couple little dings here and there, and I wasn't really happy with how this had peeled off. And so I basically shook this up really good, and I sprayed a bunch of spray paint in here, and then used a fine brush and just did the detail work. And I'm really surprised how well it came out. It just took all the dings and nicks away. The other thing I did is I'm using marker here. Now I realize that this whole thing's a bit too shiny, so I'm thinking about locking in all the colors after I'm completed with a satin clear coat, but we'll see about that. But I find that sometimes markers are much better, especially if you get a fine tipped one like this, to do the detail work with the markers than it is for me painting things. The other thing I'm kind of contemplating is using the marker to do some detail work to help pop these teeth out separately. Although I'm kind of mixed about that, but the great thing about Rub and Buff is I can just go back in there, probably with a Q-tip, and just lighten that all up so it's not so prominent. Now on the shaft of the stick, I was able to use some brown paint and knock out that Rub and Buff that had gone over the edge. And I wanted to make the grain pop a little bit more. So what I did is I took the marker again and just went right into the grooves like this. And you can see that I did it all the way down. Otherwise, it's just all one color. You see a little bit of shine maybe with the marker, and that's fine. You don't have to go an extra step from there. But I'm going to actually come in here and just almost dry brush and give it a little more darker detail with this real brown. You know, just touch that up a bit all the way down. Finish that up, and then once again, hit it with a clear satin coat maybe to take the shine down a little bit and lock in the colors to keep it from, give it a little extra protection. These right here are old applesauce plastic containers. I find that they're perfect for painting. So I use those all the time. That and paper plates. So I'm just getting a little of paint on there, and then I'm just tapping it off a good bit and then just lightly running down the handle, getting a little bit in the grooves to knock down the shine just a tad, to give it the impression it's a piece of wood instead of a piece of lightweight plastic. Giving the shaft a little bit more thought, and I've decided I'm going to do burnt sienna. And I've put a little bit of water in here to kind of thin it out. It looks pretty thick. And again, I'm just going to tap off a lot of the paint and just kind of really try to hold on to a place that hasn't been painted, and just kind of just put a little bit of, that's even too much right there. So maybe knock it off a little bit more. I mean, just, it's almost like a dry brush on top of a dry brush, and give the wood some character. And if that's too much, I just have a towel here. Then I'm just going to knock it down. And if it gets a little bit in a groove, so be it. Not a big deal. You're just trying to make this thing look like it was made out of real wood. And from a distance, it probably looks great, but you're just kind of making this a hero prop. You're going to take it to a cosplay. We're going to finish this up on the burnt sienna and let it dry. And then I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do on this guy. I took some Rub and Buff and put it on a Q-tip. I went over the area that I used the permanent marker to kind of take off just a bit of the top level. I'm finding that a black permanent marker and rub and buff working as a combination does incredible things. I used it in other projects and I'm just really happy with the results. So it knocks it down, it's not so obvious, and it really is looking good. I'm going to make this a 2-part episode because I'm really happy with this kind of alien trophy, almost like a predator thing. He or she collected and then put on a stick and took home and showed all the other predators. But I really want to take it the next step. I want to battle it up as if it was actually used in combat. But that's kind of a risk. So I'm going to cut it off here, and then we're going to do a whole nother video where I take it from this step and battle wear it. Thumbs up and comments always appreciated. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in cosplays, props, making and breaking things, design ideas for all sorts of crazy subjects, check out my channel and please subscribe, because you never know what you're going to see.